Welcome back, Caddy Corner, episode 54. I'm Caleb.
I'm Austin.
And today we have a very special episode for you. We have a guest on. His name is Brennen Johnston, but we'll get to that in a minute. Before we get started, please be sure to rate and review the show if you're new, and also like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. We have this episode that comes out every Friday, definitely more informative and self-improvement, and this is also the episodes that we have the guest on, so don't want to miss that. We have After Hours that comes out every Wednesday. Definitely more kickback, laid-back vibes where we talk about whatever we want to talk about for however long we want to talk about it, and lately it has been animals.
Yeah, except for what we just recorded a second ago, but they don't get to hear that yet. So
Right.
So stay tuned for next week's episode of After Hours where we don't talk about animals. Maybe.
That is true.
Maybe we're clickbaiting them. Welcome everybody that's new. Again, we've had like an influx of people coming from the Instagram, and I've said that on the past 3 recordings that you guys haven't heard yet again. But if you're new, seriously, it means a ton to us that you are here. And like Caleb said, make sure to engage with the content in every way. And also share it around with your family and friends and anybody else that you think needs to listen to this great show that is Caddy Corner. So without further ado, Brennen Johnston, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so we're here, NCSRT Conference 2023, Caleb and I, doing some media, some fun stuff, and this is our first ever like guest interview / like professional person interview, other than I guess whenever we did the college professor ones, whenever we did that 20-ish weeks ago or whatever. This is Brennen Johnston. He's here. He's a healthcare professional, young leader, cool guy, all kinds of cool stuff. I'll let him introduce himself because he knows his accolades better than I do. So take it away, man.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me. My name is Brennen Johnston. I'm 30 years old. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Married to a beautiful woman named Krista. Got 3 dogs, 3 of them. A 6-pound wiener dog that runs the roost and 2 terrier mutts. So Penny, Charlie, and Dudley. Professionally, I'm a radiology manager with Atrium Health. Specifically, my role is I'm the CAT scan manager at Carolinas Medical Center. It's our level 1 trauma center, our flagship hospital with Atrium Health. And then I also manage the Kenilworth Imaging Center, which is our heart-focused imaging center. It's about a block away, and on nice days, I can walk between the 2 facilities.
There you go.
And then lastly, I function as the CT cardiac program lead for the company. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I think that the angle that I want to take hard, the notes that I kind of made was your management leadership type expertise and background. That's in everything. You have to lead people in every aspect. It's how you scale anything. And so one of the questions that I had was like, how do you choose people that you can trust to do a job? Like, how do you pick the team, if you will?
So it's funny because as far as leadership goes, you know, there were many years where I didn't do it very well, to be honest with you. I'm sure, like, you know, your guys' podcasts have gotten so much better than your first one.
Oh, yeah.
So first and foremost, you know, I haven't always done this really well. I feel like I'm really doing it well now, and I'm very blessed with a phenomenal team. I think when you are leading, not just in your organization, but in all aspects of life, you look for people with a spark, and that spark is usually how they help other people. It's interesting. At the Student Bowl, the things that I noticed wasn't necessarily who had the fastest answer independently. It was how they functioned as a team. Did you notice that the team that won, they all mutually respected each other. They all consulted each other before answering. They functioned as a team.
Yeah.
The other teams who did not make it, and this isn't just the sole factor.
Yeah.
But I noticed that the teams that didn't make it to that final round didn't have that collaboration, didn't have that spark. But the same is true in any organization, especially in healthcare. I look for people to join my team who deeply care about helping other people. That could be the patients. That's mostly the patients, actually. Right. But oftentimes it shows up at least on the stage that I'm looking at, how they treat their peers, the people around them.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of something that you just kind of like pick up after you work with a team like so often, especially if you're good with working with teams. It's like, yeah, you're striving to help others because like you pick healthcare, and like that is like the whole point of healthcare. But then with that, it is I wouldn't say a majority, but there is a lot of that where it is like you have to help your teammates too. And so, I mean, like hospitals wouldn't be able to run if nobody like communicated and nobody liked each other who worked there, because then nothing would get done. So, yeah, that's super cool. So you have like a very high up leadership position, and you're like a young dude.
Well, I mean, in all honesty, it's I appreciate it. I guess I'm bad at taking compliments, but so thank you. But yeah, I actually just turned 30, as I mentioned to you guys yesterday. But I've been very blessed. So again, the thing about helping others, not only have I done it towards others, others have done that to me. So, like I'd mentioned, I haven't always been the most effective leader, and I'm still growing. But it took a lot of people investing in me. Anytime I've gotten promoted, it wasn't because I applied to a position and sat down and had a really good interview. It's because of the countless hours that people have poured into me, that given me life skills, taught me things, how to hold a coaching conversation, or how to read a financial statement. These are things that, others have done for me. They're also, of course there's an element where you have to, of course, help yourself too. Take the classes and get the skills necessary. There's a strong element of making sure that you're advocating for yourself, but there's so many people in my career who have, like, built me up, and I'll say that's part of it.
Yeah, that's super interesting, because you think, like, people who have a job like that, like a management job, like a leadership job, and you think about their resume or whatever, and you're like, well, they've done this and this and that, and they have all these skills and all this stuff, and then yeah, they're really good at interviewing and all this stuff, but it's crazy because the interview seems like it's not like the most important part of getting a job at all. It's like we talk about this because with our field it's kind of different. Like in our field, it's like to get a job, it's really based off your portfolio. But like you can kind of think about like a resume in the same kind of way, with like past job experiences. And I think like it's definitely more like getting a job and getting promoted is definitely more like I've done these things or whatever, other than just like I have these skills. Like this is what I've done. This is what I have done to like change whatever, other than just being like, yeah, I can answer questions good off the dome,
Well, it's interesting that you mention that, because oftentimes because now I'm in a situation where I'm interviewing people for leadership positions, and it's actually a red flag to me when I hear people say, I did this, I did that, I did, this project, that they're probably a very high performer and detail oriented. The best leadership interviews that I've heard is what people have done as a team. So like with you guys, you have a community, and you guys are building a portfolio, but I guess the truth of propelling forward is going to come from the relationships that you build.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We just talked about that a little bit, and with the show we recorded yesterday, because we just did a year of this podcast. This is 54 weeks, and we did like takeaways, and that was one of Caleb's was like networking, and how that has been something that I guess we've learned is like a really powerful tool, like who you know, but then also like how you work with those people, like you said. I think that, like Caleb was saying, like a hospital wouldn't run without a team, and a hospital is a huge place, so it's a large team. I think that that's a good way that you think about choosing people for positions, is not based off of what they have accomplished, but what them talking about their teammates, because that's them being able to acknowledge that like it wasn't just them that did anything. Because in a hospital, it's probably even maybe like an extreme example of like nothing happens with just one person. Everything goes through multiple people, which, I mean, you have to be thorough, because like there's some serious stakes in those type of events. But that's super interesting that you mentioned that, because it's cool. It's cool stuff. So I think something else that's really interesting is Caleb kind of mentioned like young leader in large scale positions and stuff like that. Have you ever had any like issues with like peers or anything like that because you're like younger or have like less experience?
Yeah, and the thing is that in the moment, you kind of take it hard because it's something that you can't really control. Like I can't control that I'm young. So my first leadership role, formal leadership role, was when I was 23, and the reality is that I had people on my team that were significantly older than me, and it's interesting because things that offend you hit a personal note. And so I think now with more time and more wisdom, I look back at that and I don't view it the same, because the reality is that those people were probably right to be a little cautious because I had all the ambition, all the thoughts, all the ideas about the world, and none of the proof. And proof comes from experience. So I was kind of offended that maybe I wasn't received as well at first, but were they wrong? No, maybe they were just cautious. And can I be offended that they were cautious? Probably not.
Yeah, dude, that's so interesting. I never even thought about it like that, because it is kind of like it's definitely, whenever you're young and somebody is like belittling you, kind of, it'll make you think, whoa, just because I'm younger doesn't mean that I am less knowledgeable or whatever. But yeah, it's true that like maybe they were just being cautious, and like you kind of have to respect that. And I mean, we've kind of seen that with this too, like if we say something and we like voice our opinion online, and then somebody on Instagram or TikTok leaves like a nasty comment, and you're like, well, I can't believe you're like bashing my opinion like that. But it is kind of like, well, I am just like a young kid with like little world experience, and like the only thing I do is make videos, kind of. So like, why are they supposed to like respect my opinion? It's kind of...
Well, it's interesting because there's a way to combat that and still be proud of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the way that you combat that is with unapologetic humility. So there's been 2 times that come to mind where I've been first introduced to a team and I haven't known anybody, where I've come into a leadership position and I don't know the team. The first time I was younger, and I was less experienced, and I was wary that if they caught on to my inexperience, that it'd be like blood in the water. So I tried to posture myself in a way that I really didn't have the accolades for. I tried to kind of seem like I had it together, even if in the back of my mind I was like, oh, whoa, I didn't know that. I need to learn that. The second time that I did it, I walked in and I was unapologetically humble. It was like, hey, I'm getting to know the team. I'm not here to make any immediate changes. The reality is that I want to hear your ideas. I want to learn the department. I really want to spend the next, 4, 6, 8 weeks, however long it takes to get to know you, get to know the work that we do. And honestly, I want your ideas, because the reality is that you guys have been here for a minute and I just walked in. Very different reception.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, whenever you take something with that kind of route, then it's kind of just like the team would be foolish to not kind of like respect that, because I think like at the end of the day, people just want to be heard, and I think like that is the reason why we kind of do what we do, is just because we want like our voice to be heard, and we feel like we have like something that we can bring to the world, just like everyone else feels like they have something they can bring to the team. And then if somebody new just comes in and they're like, well, I'm going to change all this stuff that you guys do every day, then you can definitely get like some hate for that. Definitely.
And that's actually a big area of engagement. So you asked me, how do I recruit people? And I look for people who help other people. And I think the second part is, make room for others to contribute as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's super important. So I heard you say something earlier about crucial conversations, and I've been told that you're like kind of an expert in that. And so I want to like kind of ask you how you have one of those, and then like also not just how you like start a crucial conversation like with an employee or whatever, but like if you are the employee, how do you like continue one of those conversations in like a healthy way?
So first and foremost, I did not used to be very good at crucial conversations, and it was something. It was actually a big area that I needed to grow in. It was probably one of my weaker attributes when I started as a leader, but that was opportunity to grow. So the first couple conversations that you have that don't really go well, you walk away thinking like, oh crap, like I need to do something different, and so that's how it came about. And when I eventually went into a role where I needed to teach other leaders how to do this, that's when I started putting it to paper. So the way that I approach a crucial conversation is I never go into a conversation without some clarity. And I mean, it's really easy to talk about attendance. It's really easy to talk about quality of an exam per se. Those are objective realities. It gets more difficult when you need to talk to somebody where their reality probably doesn't match yours, because people often view themselves in a certain way, and then you're viewing a situation in a different way. Everybody is the good guy in their own story, and so that's important to realize when you go into a conversation. You may be looking at their communication as hostile. They don't view it that way. So I go in with a crystal clear definition of what I'm concerned about. Because the reality is it would be very unkind to not do that for somebody. I mean, can you imagine if I just had a feeling like, I feel like you're kind of hostile, and I feel like if you keep making me feel that way, you could possibly lose your job? Like
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A completely
so unkind.
Yeah, it's a completely biased conversation too.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And then what sort of progress are we going to make, right? So I get extremely clear, and I try to understand if it's in a little bit of I always think of it like in a box, like a common topic, like professionalism, a theme, if you will. Because if I have to have a similar conversation down the road, I want to continue that conversation, but getting really crystal clear, like I need parameters in my head. And so my parameters, I need to be able to define it in one sentence, not a run-on sentence, not a paragraph sentence, not the one that's going to get you in trouble from your English teacher, like a clear sentence. I am concerned that the way you are communicating with others is causing a disconnect in the team where others are seeing it as hostile. Or I am concerned that your behavior is impacting your team to collaborate with you. I'm just making these up, but I want to be able to define it in one sentence. And I think most importantly, the way I define it is important too. I have a common phrase that I say, it's identify, not identity. I'm not going to lay out my conversation in a way that calls to question your perception of your self-identity. Like, I'm not going to categorize you or label you. I'm not going to infer that your actions have any correlation to who you are as a person. And I think an extension of that is a crucial conversation, especially the ones that are the hardest to have. It can hurt to hear, but it should never harm. So, and then you had asked me, how do I structure those conversations?
Yeah.
The way I initially structured it, so as I mentioned, I didn't used to do very good at this. So then you start trying to grab whatever book, YouTube, podcasts, right, from people who are in that space, and you're like, how the heck do you do this? And like the very first thing that you hear is the sandwich method, right? Say something nice, get the criticism out.
Yeah, I've heard of that before.
Nice. Yeah, I don't do that because I'm bad at it. There are probably people who do really good with it. I don't, because in my mind, if I have like 30 minutes with somebody, I am going to. So human nature is to avoid conflict, right? We know this. No one wants it. That's why when I mentor others, I use the phrase, we chase difficult conversations for a couple reasons. You don't want to ever delay that conversation to like next week, and then you're like, well, can I even talk to this, anymore because it happened last week? And if there's something that needs to be said, you gotta just do it. So there's a courage factor. But I don't do the sandwich method because I will ramble for 29 minutes about why you're an amazing person.
Yeah, the good stuff.
And then I will just drop a nuke on you because I'm like, oh crap, I have to get this done. Like
one
I had
minute
like 30
left.
minutes in my mind. I like, oh, and by the way, none of your peers like you. But like,
Bye.
but hey, I like your sweater today. Have a great day. Like you can't do that. It's unkind.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
No.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a certain element of people feel tricked. None of your compliments are genuine anymore. You just said something nice to deliver something on, just
Yeah, it does kind of seem like fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're just, like you have something negative to say, so you have to come up with two positive things just to like make the negative thing seems not as important.
And by the way, I've been on the receiving end of that conversation where it was like, hey, Brennen, I think you're wonderful. And I'm instantly like on guard.
No, of
Like,
course.
oh,
Yeah, because
no.
you know what's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next thing is going to be something unpleasant.
And so the best conversations go when you guys can vulnerably exist in the same space. So the best way I know to do that is I do like to kind of help that person calibrate where this conversation is going to be. So in my mind, I need to get this out in about 5 to 10 seconds, like super quick. So it also really kind of helps get that person in the right frame of mind. So it may be something where it's like, so if it's just a mild issue, like, hey, I got to be honest with you, we kind of have to have like a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation. Honestly, I think that we can get this resolved just with a quick conversation. If you can just buckle in with me for about 10 to 15 minutes, I think we can get this fixed. Honestly, the goal of this conversation is really to help you work more cohesively with your teammates. I set the tone within 5 to 10 seconds, and I talk about the goal of the conversation in about 5 to 10 seconds. But I think people can respect that because it's honest. But then there are times where, and there have been unfortunate times, some of my least favorite moments in my career is when I've had to let somebody go. It's the worst, the absolute worst. And for those conversations, I set the tone and get out the goal really quick because I'm not going to leave somebody in suspense like they're at the top of a roller coaster about to come crashing down. Those conversations sound a lot more like, hey, we have to have probably one of the most difficult conversations you've ever had because, unfortunately, today we're no longer going to be able to work together. The purpose of this conversation is I do need to discuss us parting ways. But at least that person knows and it's out there. I don't want to ramble for 20 minutes and be like, oh, and by the way, here are your exit papers and we need you to clear out your locker. Not cool.
No,
Right?
not
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, set the tone, set the goal, and then I get into the meat and potatoes of the issue. I really define it like, is this happening often? Is it having an impact on others? And then after I do that, I pause for them. I want to hear your side. The amount of times I went into a conversation and haven't had the full story, it's more often than not.
I
Right.
can imagine. Yeah.
And it's also respectful. It's a basic common courtesy. Like, what do you think about my concerns here? What's your perspective on this? And I genuinely take that. I'm not just going to listen to you and then be like, well, anyways. Like,
Yeah. But thank you, but
Yeah.
didn't
Oh,
change
well.
my mind this time.
Yeah, I mean, that's not fair. It's an actual conversation. We're actually talking. I want you to contribute. But after that, I kind of paint out a roadmap of what this will look like moving forward. If it's a small issue, I might say, hey, I think that we were able to get this resolved today. Honestly, I feel confident that you're going to be able to correct this issue with your teammates or correct this issue with your quality or correct this issue with your attendance. So I think you're good to go. I'm going to paint that roadmap, but there may be times where it's an ongoing issue that is going to be pretty difficult to resolve. Maybe it's a communication habit. And then at that point, I'm going to say something along the lines of like, hey, I think that we had a good conversation, but I don't know if this is something that, we were able to fully resolve today. I think this is probably something we're going to need to meet on an ongoing basis. I tell you what, let's meet every Friday at 2, and let's just check in to see how you're doing. And I think lastly, and I know I've talked about crucial conversations for a long time here, something I'm passionate about.
It's the best bit so far, so keep going.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I do like to use a metaphor because I think that a lot of people think in pictures and less with words.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think in pictures.
Yeah.
And some of most fun conversations I've had with peers is when they talk with pictures too. And the way that I'll do that is if it's like a severe issue, I might say something like, hey, this is like a red flashing warning sign, like you're about ready to go off the cliff. Like I need you to clue into this because this is pretty concerning. Like it's all systems go. I'm worried about this. Or if it's, something more mild, I may be like, hey, listen, I just want to bring this to your attention. This is kind of like a yellow light. I just need you to, I'm not telling you that this is a hard screeching tire red light moment, but I want you to have some caution in this. And I think one of the best metaphors I use is like a park bench. So think of that classic wooden park bench. Most of the time when I'm having a conversation with somebody, I'm helping them correct an issue that they're having with their peers. Usually it's small ticky-tack professionalism stuff or communication issues. So I use a park bench metaphor, and I picked this up from a podcast a while ago. This is not an original, but it works really well. I'll say something along the lines of, hey, I really want to help you solve this issue that you're having with your peers. And right now I kind of see that it's a little bit of you versus them. And so what I want to do is I want to sit on your side of the park bench. I want to coach you. I want to mentor you. I want to help you resolve this. But if I'm getting the sense that you're not taking my feedback and moving that forward, that would be a concern for me, because I wouldn't be able to continue to sit on your side and coach you on up if you're not moving that forward. So at that point, I would have to stand and be a neutral party between the two of you. And that makes things a little bit more cumbersome, a little bit less convenient for us both, because I'm no longer able to mentor you. I'm no longer able to help you. I'm just reporting the facts, like, hey, this happened again, and this is the result. This is going to be a write-up, unfortunately. But even after then, if you're not moving this forward, eventually I'd have to sit on the other side of the park bench, and unfortunately that would be where we would no longer be able to work together, because we've been unable to resolve this. So that really kind of does two things. It helps visualize what's happening in this conversation, and then also it gives us a running reference if I have to have this conversation ongoing. If I notice something kind of small, I might say something like, hey, listen, this is me sitting on your side of the bench. That didn't go well.
Yeah.
Or it might be to a point where it's like, hey, today this is going to be a write-up, and so at this point I'm standing. It's a good reference point. It kind of helps people understand the fulcrum of kind of concern.
Yeah, I think that definitely does help, because I feel like most people do see in pictures, and so being able to like bring something that's as relatable to like, okay, let me come sit on your side of the park bench so I can like be on your team for a minute and like help you through this, and then then they know that, okay, this guy's not trying to like tear me down, like this dude is definitely on my side. So I think that that's definitely important to know.
For sure. And I think some of the stuff too that you said that I thought was really interesting in that Crucial Conversations talk was like, you put your belief that people can like adjust into the people that you're talking to. And I think that goes a super long way. That's like a coach in a sport, like believing that, like you can learn how to get better at whatever, or like that's important, because like pivoting and changing and having to make an adjustment is like not an innately easy thing. And if you have somebody who is in a leadership position believe in you, you're a lot more likely to like, number one, take the feedback, I think, and then also like make the adjustment, and then apply that in all aspects. I think that's really important. I think that it's important that, like, because a lot of leaders don't do that. A lot of leaders will just kind of give feedback and then vanish, which is not great. But I think like giving, almost being like a cheerleader, not maybe super obviously, but like indirectly, like a ghost cheerleader, is like very beneficial to a lot of people. So we talked about the kind of professionalism side of what you do a lot. I want to talk about the healthcare side of it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our audience is mostly like late high school and then through college aged kids. And we talk a lot about, like, a lot of our episodes have been that we've done kind of through our catalog are like how to choose your major, like how do you get better at studying, like how do you write this paper, that kind of thing. So if you wanted to talk a little bit about how, like why healthcare, or why specifically like your fields like cardiac and CT and that kind of thing, if you wanted to talk about that, like why would you want to go into that field, the floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think 2 bits of advice. Find something that you're excited about. I know, groundbreaking advice. But seriously, find something that you're excited about. And then the second bit is avoid debt like it's a plague. Because it is.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So for me, that was pretty easy. I knew I wanted to do something in healthcare. And my career it's not something that I chose when I was 18. It has grown since I've been 18. So for me, who I was as an 18-year-old was, oh, snap. I could, at the time, I was like, oh, I could make 50 grand with 2 years of education. That's awesome. Oh, wow, I could actually pay for this program. Oh, okay. Like, it was very, like, that was about the extent of the
Right.
thought process. I never, like, if I was 18, I went back and talked to myself then and was like, oh, you're going to do this, and then you're going to do that, and then you're going to do... No, that's what a career is for. It's fluid, it's moving, it's growing. And I think a lot of 18-year-olds, myself being one of those 18-year-olds, tends to put the pressure on. It's like this unmovable, like, monolith of just, like, massive responsibility. Like, if I mess this up, no, it's like going to the grocery store. Like, if I go down the wrong aisle, I can go down a different aisle.
Yeah. You can always pivot.
Yes, you can always pivot. But a career has an interesting way of developing over time. You do something for a while, you love it, you talk to people. Everyone, uses the word networking, but the reality is you work in a space with other people who also do that sort of work, and gosh darn it, you actually tend to like talking to them.
Yeah, you can just enjoy conversations.
Yeah. And you have a common interest.
Yeah, and so everyone's like, oh, I'm networking. My strongest networks is like, oh yeah, that guy, I had a super awesome conversation, or oh yeah, we've done this project and we both geeked out over it, or that's true networking. So honestly, I've made buddies in my industry, people I enjoy speaking with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super important, I think. What's something working in a hospital that, like, from the outside looking in, that people wouldn't expect about the job?
From the outside looking in, I think that... Ooh, you stumped me. I don't think that I anticipated just how lighthearted people are in the hospital. And that can come out in a number of different forms. Of course, you always hear about the classic, like, dark humor or, slap-happy nature. But before I got into it, I viewed it as I still do, I hold it up as a very noble profession in my eyes, with a lot of stress, with a lot of liability. Your actions have real life implications on others. And then you get into the field and everyone's just like holding that mantle and like listening to AC/DC in the OR, and you're like, whoa, where am I? Like, this surgeon's listening to Metallica on an 8-hour, like, spinal surgery. Like, it's very bizarre how people can just cope with that, and not even realize that they're doing that. I do that.
Yeah. It's because it's normal for you.
Yeah.
It's because being in a surgery room for those surgeons is just like that's just where they work.
Yeah.
And so they just listen to
it's just a Monday.
Exactly. It's just Monday. Yeah.
All right.
I'm looking at this guy's heart.
Yep.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and amputate this leg. Here you go.
Exactly.
Like, it's just
AC/DC on. Yeah.
But I did not expect that.
Yeah.
When I first got into
I wouldn't expect that either.
Yeah, there's no way that I would have expected that.
Because what I was just thinking of was the scene in like the beginning of Doctor Strange,
Yeah.
where he's listening to, and I thought that was fake.
Yeah, no, that's totally real.
That's cool, though.
Yeah, so I mean, most of the time it's like, I remember being a student and like being in the OR. They're just like, Run DMC playing and just, these things that you wouldn't anticipate, from these surgeons who have gone to prestigious schools and
Right.
are, masters at their craft, and somebody's life is underneath their scalpel, and so you walk in and it's just. So it's like you get so ingrained with watching television or movies, and there's somebody who it's an intense scene and there's drama, and of course it makes for great trash TV, but the reality is it's not that way. And there's very little cowboys in the industry. I mean, there's some, don't get me wrong, but you always see on these TV shows, this cavalier, guy who's running through a trauma and all intense, and
Yeah.
most are pretty chill.
I would imagine.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you kind of have to be.
Yeah, you have to be so chill because that's like, I mean, I don't know. I've never been a surgeon before, but I can only imagine how stressful that is. But maybe it's like not stressful for them.
Well, and it's interesting you said surgeon. So if there is one person who's more likely than others to be a little bit higher strung, it is probably the surgeon. But like the ER trauma doc, typically some of the most chill people ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, we love our little inside jokes and stereotypes about all the different professions. Like for me personally, CT is, the biggest part of my professional background. I still do CT. I'm very involved with CT. We tend to be like ADHD squirrels, like very just like bubbly, outgoing. We constantly need to be moving. MR techs are phenomenally detail oriented. I mean, you kind of have to be and enjoy that sort of stuff. The same thing that can make an accountant do like an 8-hour day seems to be the same sort of stuff that an MR tech can focus on nitty gritty details for a 45-minute exam.
Yeah.
I don't have that. I would die.
Yeah.
Like in the chair, I would die. So.
Yeah. So I hear you talking about cats and squirrels, and I didn't know you were a vet, but I was just wondering if you did like dog scans too.
Oh, the dad jokes. Oh, the dad jokes. No, that's actually in the lab.
Yeah, I was just playing. No, but my real question is, and this is one that I'm most excited to ask you, is how has like technology and like the new like wave of artificial intelligence changed your job?
A lot. So AI is something that I still have difficulty wrapping my head around. I went to the RSNA International Conference this past year, and AI was like a fourth of the booths that were there. It is impacting healthcare in a way that I don't think anybody is fully wrapping their head around. It is impacting every aspect of the patient care flow. Before they get to the doctors, when they're at the doctor's office, EMR, radiology, post. So happening right now, guarantee you, at my facility, if there's a code stroke or somebody is having some sort of interruption in the blood flow to their brain, my team does a CAT scan to understand what is happening. And before the radiologist even has the opportunity to look at the images, it is flagging on the neurodoc's phone saying, hey, potential stroke here. And the images are right on his phone saying, and this is all AI, I have identified a concern. And of course, then it's confirmed by the radiologist.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
That's like so impressive. So like, what do you think about people who are kind of like scared of that? Like scared of artificial intelligence.
I'm not sure what I think about the fear of it, because I think it's natural to hold a little bit of a fear of anything that's unknown, but I think I would pose the question, is that even an option? So I don't know if it's an option to necessarily be a late adapter, because it's not like it's upcoming.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
here.
it's here now.
Right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, obviously there's a lot of questions for, people much smarter than I to kind of debate about the ongoing development of AI. That being said, I think that if you are not adapting AI, essentially you're experiencing inefficiencies and you're going to get left behind at an exponential rate. For me, the exciting thing that kind of displaces a lot of fear is the more AI is able to help, the more I'm able to focus on my ability to have simple human connection with others. I used to have to do a workflow that took me 10 minutes, and now I can do it in 3.
Right.
That's so much more time to actually care for others.
Yeah, definitely.
Plus
And
7 minutes.
Yeah, that's so important whenever it comes to healthcare. Like being able to like be there with your team, or like be there in the room with the patient. Like having that extra like 7 minutes. I mean, could save somebody's life.
Well, and it's the rewarding aspect of the job. So nobody wants to feel like they're inundated, and that is keeping them from the very thing that makes them love their career. So when it comes to AI and its ability to assist us in doing our jobs, there's constant debates about will AI become so advanced that it starts to decrease our necessity to be, skilled practitioners of our art, right? But so that's an ongoing conversation. But I think the reality is that there can be a balance where you are still both, yes, the skilled practitioner of your art, and then also it's a tool in your vast tool chest that is now something that can contribute in a positive way.
Yeah, and I think that the balance is kind of already there, where like these two worlds can coexist together, like what you said with the notifications that it sends. Like if you put somebody in a CT scan, then it'll send like alerts to the doctor's phone, so that he can look and see, okay, like maybe this is something, or like maybe it's not, so it's still the say is still in the hands of the human, for people who are afraid of like technology being wrong or whatever, like the technology just thinks that it sees something, it sends it away to make sure that it is something, or like maybe it's not. So I think like you're still in the hands of a human, if that like makes you feel more safe.
Yeah, and it's funny because I mean it is startling how accurate it is, to be honest with you. The amount of data and it impacts the accuracy in a unfathomable way. But yes, I think having that human element is important. But just to give you another example, I mean, currently happening right now, there are systems where if you have any sort of like chest CT, there is AI running in the background that can identify a nodule and refer you for potential like pulmonary care or just routine maintenance, like going and getting routine low dose CT chests to see if this is just a nodule or if it's a potential growing tumor.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
Yeah, and I just think that is crazy how like much this can help people, because like one thing that we talk about is like ChatGPT, and like that is something that we can use for like
I
our
watched South Park last night, and that was I won't lie, that was exactly what was being discussed. I was like,
yeah, and so like that is something that we can use in our field, and like as it does like help us in what we're trying to do, like AI is so versatile and it can help in like any field. So like I think it's crazy, because I would have never thought until like we were talking to his mom yesterday about, and she like told us to ask you about how AI has like changed your position, and I was like, I wouldn't have even thought that AI was even a thing in the hospital, just because of like, I don't know, like kind of the fear of putting your hands or putting your life in the hands of like a computer, it's kind of like a freaky thing. And so like I wouldn't have even thought that was even an option. So I think it's super cool that I mean this stuff can like save lives too.
Another crazy thing about it too is like we're in the wild west of it still. It just kind of started, like who knows what AI looks like in professional environments in like 5 years or even in like 6 months.
Oh yeah. One of my favorite things to tell students that quickly dates me, to be honest with you, is so everyone used to talk about, I shot on film. And that was like how they could date themselves as, being that, previous generation. For me, it's like, I shot on CR, where you could be up in the ICU. And CR is, a cassette-based, X-ray type of workflow where you still have to go down to a processor and run it. You see it on the computer and everything. It's not like dipping film. But you really wanted to make sure that you got it right in the ICU before you go 4 floors down and process, and you're like, crap, I clipped X, Y, and Z, and now you got to go back. But the very first DR, so that's fully digital X-ray that we had, the cassette weighed like 35 pounds. There was techs who actually injured their shoulders, trying to wield this hunk of junk. And the most comical thing is it wasn't even cordless. It was tethered to the machine by a cord. Like, can you imagine dragging this like 10-foot long cord through like bloods and guts, and it was awful.
It's all in the way.
Yeah, it's just in the way.
Yeah,
it was a nightmare. And then you had to like go and plug it into the wall to send it to PAX.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Yeah,
but I mean, the field is going to go in places that we can't even anticipate today.
Yeah.
Which is the amazing thing, and that's with every field of technology, because it's still kind of like the Wild West with like, especially with mobile technology.
Mm-hmm.
Like the smartphone in this shape is like 15 years old. Like that's crazy to think about, Yeah,
it's pretty wild. I mean, it's terrifying because it's unknown, but it's
fascinating because it's unknown.
Extremely fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen so much innovation happen in 13 years. Man, I got another 35 ahead of me.
Which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's the amazing part.
Yeah, it is. It's so amazing. And I think like one thing that we talk about all the time is like in our field, like social media and how we haven't even seen the peak social media app yet. Like right now, we both think that YouTube is like the greatest social media of like all time, just because you can go there for anything. Like there's so much information to be taken in there, and then also like it's a great place to go for entertainment as well. Like YouTube just has got it all, and like for us, YouTube is the greatest of all time so far. But it's like there's gonna be something sometime that is like way greater than YouTube, and it's just like so interesting to think about how we haven't even seen like the greatest yet, because like we just had a guest on just last week, or I guess it's 2 weeks ago now whenever you're listening to this, but he said that like nobody ever arrives. But like whenever nobody arrives, that means that nothing ever arrives. So like even the greatest social media app after YouTube is still not going to be the greatest social media app, because like it just is always changing and always evolving, and like nothing ever arrives.
Oh, yeah. I would agree with that completely.
That's like what you said yesterday in the car. Caleb said yesterday in the car, he was like, the best movie has never been made.
Yeah.
The greatest movie ever hasn't even been made yet. It's like that's such a good way to think about it, I think, too.
Well, and it's amazing how small that makes you feel.
So small.
And, it's interesting because a lot of social media has quite literally rewired how people think, feel, communicate.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny for somebody who, I don't know, this is like such a boomer statement, but it does, there's a twinge of sadness knowing that there has been an element of dysfunction in how people interact with each other. Social media has been one of the most amazing things that has ever, hit, the internet, because of the possibility of connecting people from all over the world. And to see moments where it just launches into such turmoil is so sad. I mean, you talked about getting rough comments. That's harsh because that you wouldn't just be in an IHOP and someone's like, you suck. Like,
true.
It would never happen.
Yeah, it's only something that happens behind a screen.
Yeah.
And like we think the same way. Like social media is one of the greatest tools, but people don't use it as a tool. People use it for, like the people who use it mostly for entertainment are the people who are like seeing the like bad side of it, I think, instead of like using it as not really as it was intended, because it was like kind of intended for entertainment uses only, but I think as it has evolved, like people have learned how to use it as a tool. And I mean, like I would argue that we use it as tools, and we talk about how like it's the greatest thing of all time, but like people are like so addicted to it, and like
well, and it's interesting because anything that is like social media, this isn't everyone talks about it's a new problem. It's not. This is a symptom of a bigger life theme, right? So it's not just social media. I mean, alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
It's addiction.
So, I mean, alcohol could be the most destructive thing ever. Could cost you your family, somebody else's life, your home, your sanity. Could cost you everything. Or it could be just, loosen you up for a first date.
Yeah, like a good time, know? And I think that's like the most controversial part, is because people are not thinking about that. They're thinking about I'm going to go out on Friday and I'm going to have a good time. And like I need this product to have a good time, Yeah. And I think that's the same way. Like people think that they have to have TikTok to have fun, like to have a good time, like laying in their bed, like on a Wednesday,
Well, I think it comes down to, one of the most undervalued but poetically beautiful traits that you could have is restraint. I mean, there's all sorts of people who talk about this nowadays, people on both sides of political agendas and ways of thinking and background. And, of course, you got Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson, all these people, right? And, you have people far left, far right, everywhere. But one of the common themes that they talk about is, of course, Jordan Peterson has a, very famous phrase about, you should be a monster and then learn how to control it. but because I mean, it's an important value. Like, so you talk about these things that can go so wildly off the rails, and what keeps you from doing that? What keeps you from being productive? I mean, you know, when I was younger, it was like Game Boy. Like,
right.
You know, like, oh, if you're on Game Boy for more than an hour, your eyes will rot out of your head.
Yeah.
Like, your brain is going to turn to mush. But Game Boy was awesome. Video games was awesome.
Yeah.
Should I do 24 hours of it? No, I should not. Like, there's got to be an element of restraint. I mean, TikTok of, you know, people on there, you know, talking about financial stuff, and it's so frustrating. Some of the very best things in life are boring.
Yes.
Boring.
Yeah,
So
yeah. The
boring.
best information is like the hardest information to like force yourself to take in.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is the best information is like broccoli, and some of the things that are the most destructive to your soul is like a Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's the same exact concept whenever you think about like actual food too. Like broccoli sucks to eat, you know, but it's good for you. Pop-Tarts are yummy, but they're terrible.
yeah.
You know?
And to tie it back to leadership, let's do that for a moment. This is very much a tech market. And at the end of the month, I will have 0 open positions at the busiest CAT scan department in the entire state of North Carolina. Not a single one. There are departments out there with dozens of travelers. Why is that? Because some of the best things are boring. So one of the most boring thoughts that you could have as a leader, let's not overcomplicate it. Why would somebody want to work here? That's a good thought no matter what market you're in.
Yes.
Yeah,
Tech
it's
market,
like-
a hospital market.
Yeah, it's a hard question to answer too.
Is it?
I mean,
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. Why? Why is it?
If
why
you
is it
don't have
complicated?
anything, if you don't have a
If you don't have
thing,
anything, yeah. And like if you don't have anything good
Yeah.
going for the company,
It is
maybe.
complicated to answer when people start to double back and prevent themselves from doing the very things that would actually be exciting
Positive.
for somebody to do. Yeah. So, all right. So what does a worker want? They want some work-life balance.
Yeah.
Well, we can't do that because we can't structure our staffing that way, or, you know, but we've always done 8-hour shifts. Well, then why would somebody want to work here?
Right.
You just told me that you have a bad schedule. Well, I mean, they just, you know, that's how we're structured, and, you know, we just need to find somebody who will do that. Who?
Next. Who? Exactly. Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
pivot.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe it's your shift structure, maybe it's your culture, maybe it's the fact that you haven't told, you know, that one person who is mean to everybody that maybe they should stop being mean to everybody. It's why would I want to work here? I want to work somewhere where I'm doing really cool stuff, where I'm contributing. I want to feel a sense of, you know, accomplishment, which doesn't mean easy. I want to do something that's hard but contributes to life in a positive way. I want to do it with people who I like being around. And then I still want to be able to have somewhat of a semblance of a life outside of this work that I'm doing. Am I proud of who I am? Do I like the person in my mirror? It's pretty easy, but we complicate it.
For sure. Yeah.
That's money, dude, huh?
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Thanks so much for doing it.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Brennen
Absolutely.
Johnston, guys. He killed it. Have you ever been on a podcast before?
Never, not once.
Well,
So you
I'm
guys
glad
are
that
the first. I
I'm
appreciate
glad that
you
we can be
guys.
the first
Yeah.
people to offer you this opportunity. But yeah, thanks for sitting in and talking to us for a few minutes. I think that you like definitely bring a lot of insight that I mean we couldn't bring because we don't have your experience. So I definitely appreciate it. I think that people are gonna enjoy this.
I really do appreciate you guys,
Yeah.
and it's funny because, you know, this doesn't get said enough, but I'm really proud of you too.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You guys are doing something cool, and there's something to be said about, you know, you talk about experience. There's something cool about venturing in, and even if it's nerve-wracking, doing it anyways. That's very courageous, and I'm proud of you.
Thank
The
you.
world needs more people like you, so I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that. But yeah, also keep doing what you're doing. Like just keep making your way up there. Keep working hard, dude. Because I mean, you got a long way to go and a long time to get there. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, it's a long time to retire. So,
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me of that. I appreciate it. Yeah. I'll get back to work for 35 years.
Yes. Okay.
Oh.
Thanks a ton, man.
Yeah.
We'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely, I
Cool.
love that.
Yep. Sweet.